welcome to Inspiring Women with ADHD. I am Renee Allen, the host of this podcast, and I'm excited to be here. And I'm also excited because if you have listened to this podcast since the beginning, I used to trip over saying that beginning part so badly. It was so hard for me to say just those words, a welcome and the name of my podcast. And now I can do it without tripping over it. So things are possible, even if you think they aren't. Try again. Okay, in today's episode, I'm going to talk about sleep strategies for ADHD because it's not always easy to fall asleep for a lot of people, for a lot of adults, but especially when you have ADHD, you may have a ton of thoughts going on in your mind. And when you lay down, because other things aren't trying to get in there and push down those ideas. Like if you watch TV, you can put some of those ideas aside because they're giving you enough stimulation that you can let those ideas go sometimes. But if you lay down at night and it's quiet, you may have a hard time falling asleep at night. When I try to take a nap, that's a really hard thing because there's so many things I want to be doing. And sometimes it's the same thing at night. Like last night I went to bed, it was midnight and I had a lot of energy and I just thought, I wish I didn't have to get up tomorrow at a certain time because I feel energetic right now. I feel like I want to get a lot of things done. So we have to do things to help ourselves fall asleep. And I thought I'd do something a little creative with this episode. So I'm not going to just talk to you about sleep strategies. I'm actually going to use the whole episode as one of your strategies. And what I mean by that is one of the strategies is to listen to something while you fall asleep. And for some people, white noise, and I'll get into that later. But for me, I do better listening to a podcast or an audiobook where someone is talking about something that engages my mind enough that I have to pay attention. And then I kind of get tired of paying attention. It's not like I'm tired of learning or listening, but by doing that, it makes it so my active part of my brain isn't going. And then I fall asleep so much faster. But what I found is that it needs to be evenly paced in the speech. It can't be really loud. So before I did this with podcasts or books, I would do it with TV. I mean, I would think a lot of us, if we have a TV in our bedroom, or if you've ever been watching TV, even before we had multiple TVs in our homes, if you're watching TV out in your living room or something, your eyes might get tired or something. You think, I'm just going to fall asleep right now. And you'd fall asleep listening to it. But if there's a commercial or it's a movie and there's some chase scene or someone's yelling, that could wake you up. I found that a podcast or a book doesn't do that because the person's just talking unless there's commercials. So if you have a podcast with commercials, not only are the commercials louder at times, but they can also just be disruptive because they have a different pace, it's a different voice, and your mind senses that so it can wake you up. Or if there's an ending to the podcast or an ending to a chapter. Sometimes audiobooks have some little music that plays, and I think, don't play the music. I want to just sleep, and I want to just hear that person talk. And with podcasts, there's intro and outro music to start the podcast, to end the podcast. Sometimes there's little pieces of music in between to break up commercials or something like that, or special segments. And if you're trying to take a nap and you're listening to someone's voice and you think, oh yeah, I'm following this, I'm just going to go to sleep. And then you hear this music, you can't sleep anymore, or you're almost asleep and it wakes you up. So what I found is if I can find a podcast of someone's voice that's relaxing and they don't have any commercials and it's long enough, I won't get that music at the end to wake me up. Or I take the timer on my phone or on that app, and podcast apps usually have this, they differ, but you can look and say, oh, it's 45 minutes long, set it for 40 minutes and it'll go off, meaning the the podcast will turn off before that music plays. So that's one strategy I have. Another one is the podcast I like to fall asleep to is called the Bravo Docket, and it's legal talk or legal cases of people who are on Bravo shows like reality TV, sometimes other people in the world, like it could be Gwyneth Paltrow or something, but famous cases. And I found that the two women are interesting. They engage my mind. So that's important, is if you're busy thinking about something else, somehow that lets you relax in other ways. You're not thinking about your own stuff. Although when they have legal cases about money problems, sometimes that makes me think if I'm having money problems, that's not helpful. But so you find one that's about a topic that's somewhat relaxing, that doesn't have commercial breaks, that doesn't have music. Even audiobooks sometimes have music in between the chapters. And the best I found was when the Bravo Docket took 3 episodes and they put them into a bonus episode. And it was it 3 hours long or an hour and a half? Seems like it was 3 hours long, 2 hours long. I don't know. It was long enough that I could take a really long nap and not get woken up or, hear a door shut or something like that. Usually I don't need to take naps that long, but it's nice to have the option, because if you have been laying there for 20 minutes, you can't fall asleep and you think, oh no, it's going to stop in 10 minutes, then that's something else that keeps you from going to sleep. So what I thought I'd do is when I talk about sleep strategies today, I would make this an episode where I'm hopefully talking in a gentle enough voice. And I've been told teaching yoga, I was never told this before I taught yoga, that I had a calming voice. So hopefully, but I thought this could be a sleep episode for you, where you actually put it on. You have to get past the opening song because that will be a little awakening. And then I won't have a song at the end today. I'll just say bye. I'll say it quietly. So that's my plan, is I'm actually going to talk to you about something that's informative and do it in a way that is long enough that you could take a nap. If you really wanted me to, I could combine a couple of them and make them into a bonus episode, a 2-hour special just for sleeping. But I thought this could be your sleep episode, and I won't be offended. Because I actually think that the people I listen to should think it's a compliment that they talk in a way that's engaging and relaxing. But now they've added commercials, so they've kind of ruined that sleep option for me. So I will talk to you about the sleep methods. So first one is what I'm already talking about. And you need to find a way to listen. If you're in a room and nobody else is there and you don't care if it's on, you could just have the sound on in your room and listen to it. Or if you want to wear sleep earbuds and you don't want anybody else to hear, especially if you're going to sleep at night and it will keep other people awake, I found that if you have it in this ear that's not on your pillow, then you don't feel it, obviously. If you want them both in, you're trying to block out other noise. If you have certain kind of pillows, you can kind of make a little space. Sometimes you lay down and it turns it off and you have to do stuff. There's all kinds of strategies, but they work. And during the night, you might wake up and think, I don't want this thing in my ear. You can take it out. Sometimes I've listened just for so long that my battery actually dies on my AirPod, and that's okay too. But the idea is it's stopping me from thinking. And if you can find something that's stopping you from thinking and get into that relax mode, you should be set. That's my very, very favorite top tip for falling asleep. Another one is breathing techniques. And a lot of times I think in yoga and meditation, it's taught that you do the breathing sitting upright and in a way that's like perfectly aligned, and you do that and then you go to sleep. And that's really helpful for some people if they think to do it before they go to bed. I often watch TV before I go to bed, so I wouldn't be going and sitting up and doing that. And I find that sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I can't fall asleep. But if I do this breathing technique laying down in my bed, I can fall back asleep. The kind of breathing I use the most is called alternate nostril breathing, which I don't think is a pretty name. Nostril's not the prettiest name, but the Sanskrit name is Nadi Shodhana or Shodhana. And what you're doing is you're breathing in and out of each nostril separately. and holding, or what they say is retaining your breath in between. If you were to do it seated, and you can practice it seated so you can get an idea of how to do it, in a yoga training or in a yoga class, they'd usually have you sit up straight and have you take your thumb on one nostril. So I'm using my right hand, my right thumb on one nostril, and then the forefinger ready for the left nostril. I don't like doing it that way because I tend to rebel about a lot of things, but I I feel like my arm's in the air, my elbow's in the air. I want to be relaxed evenly. And so I just take a forefinger on one side with one hand and a forefinger on the other side. Then my shoulders are relaxed. So that's what I'm going to do right now. And it works really well laying down that way too. But what you do is let me think about it. I'm going to have to just do it. But you breathe. So I'm going to plug my right nostril and breathe in through the left side. And then close the left side. So then both sides are closed. So that means you're holding your breath. Okay. And you can hold it or retain that for 4 counts, 6 counts, 8 counts. My friend who's done a lot of breathing technique strategies, teaching meditation, she says longer is better, but I usually do 4 or something. So I'm going to breathe in for 4, hold it for 4. So I'll guide you like you're in a class. Okay. So breathe in, put your finger on the right nostril, breathe in through the left. Close the left, hold 1, 2, 3, or even just 2 if you can't do 4. And then let go of the right and breathe out through the right. It might be 6, might be 7, 8. Breathing in might be 4 or 5. It's just as much as you can. And then you alternate. So breathe in through the left nostril. Close the left nostril, hold. Breathe out through the right nostril. You're releasing with that finger. And then you breathe in with the right. Close that, hold. Breathe out with the left. Breathe in with the left. Hold. Breathe out with the right. Breathe in with the right. Hold. Breathe out with the left. Breathe in with the left. You can go back and forth with that. And what that is said to do is, often you've probably heard of right brain and left brain. If you have these parts of the brain, and if one part is more active, then it can make it so you can't fall asleep. You've got that busy mind. It can clear that out. And a lot of times during the night, if I wake up during the night and can't go back to sleep, last night it was actually going to sleep. So I did this actually going to sleep. And I don't do it every night, like I probably haven't done it in a couple weeks. But a lot of times when I'll go to breathe in through one side, I'm like, oh, I can breathe in that side. It's not, like I don't have a cold or anything. And then go to breathe out the other side. And it's like, oh my goodness, it's all constricted. And I breathe out, and then I go to breathe in, and it's almost like there's no possibility of breathing out. Like somebody's just blocking my airway. And then I do the other side, and it's like, I can do it. And sometimes you do cheat a little bit, open your mouth or something. You just got to get air in. But if I do that, it's not because my nose is plugged because I've been sick or anything like that. It's because that side is locked. The nadis are I don't know what you call it, a chamber or something in the Indian thought of health or whatever, the Eastern thought. And so that's blocked off some reason. And if I keep doing it, and it might take 3, 4, or 5 times to where I'm just like, is this ever going to open up? Sometimes both sides are constricted to different degrees, but it's just kind of like, what is going on? And then I finish that and I'm like, oh my goodness, like I've opened it up, or sometimes I haven't opened it up, but I just kind of give up and I go to sleep. But it is really relaxing, and it helps me quiet my mind. And you might just think, oh, that's just because you're breathing slowly. Maybe, but I've used my slow yoga, normal ujjayi breath techniques too before I learned about this, and it didn't really help me. It energized me probably more than relaxed me. And there's another breathing technique. Maybe I'll talk about that a different time, because I feel like if you learn too many at a time, then it might all blur together. But there's another one that also has retaining of the breath that is helpful. Those first few tips are things that you do once you get in bed. listening to somebody else talk, whether it's a TV show, a podcast, an audiobook, whatever it is. That's once you get in bed. The breathing techniques, even though some people do them before they go to bed, those are also things that you could do. You're already in bed, the lights are out. You might not be falling asleep and you think, okay, where's that podcast? I'm going to put it on. I've done this way too many times in the dark. And I'm sure it wakes my husband up a bit. But the other things that we can do to help ourselves fall asleep more easily are the things that we do before we go to bed. Part of that is, I guess it's not really a precursor of before you go to bed, but it's when you go to bed. The earlier you go to bed, unless it's so early, it's not dark yet, you're not tired yet, that might be a little harder. You're getting back from a trip and you're trying to get back to your time. What do you call that? Time zone, the time difference. But sometimes that's hard just because you're going to bed earlier. But if you can go to bed before you're really tired, which you might think, well, I can't fall asleep because I'm not tired. But we almost wind ourselves up by staying up later. And then we want to just keep going. And we know it's not good for our bodies. And I heard a long time ago, I have never looked up any verification for this online, but I probably heard, some doctor show say it once back in the talk show days, that for every hour you go to sleep before midnight, it's worth 2 hours after midnight. I don't know if that's actually true, but I do feel like if I'm used to going to bed at 11, but I could really fall asleep at 10, if I go to bed at 10, that hour of 10 to 11 gives me more value than having my body wait a little longer. And then at 11, I think, oh, I still haven't brushed my teeth. Oh, I want to just watch one more episode of this show or whatever it is. And the later I go, those hours of sleep aren't giving me the value for that hour. If you think of nutrient density. Do you know about nutrient density? Foods that you eat that have more calorie or more nutrients per 100 calories. They have more density of nutrients in that 100 calories. Not that we can't eat things that don't have nutrient density, but it's a good way to weigh what you're eating. If you're eating things that are high calorie, low nutrients, that's not going to give you as healthy of a body. And there may be something to it. Maybe it's something we can all look into or just try. I haven't looked into it because I have tried it and it made a huge difference for me. That if I go to bed a little earlier instead of stretching it out, I do better. I may not even require as much sleep. And what you do right before you go to sleep, I'm sure you heard this before because pretty much any article you look up on how to get better sleep, they talk about what you should or shouldn't do right before you go to sleep. And I'm laughing because I am one who does many of those things that make it harder to fall asleep. Like I mentioned a little earlier that I like to watch TV before I go to sleep. I feel like it actually engages my brain enough that I can let go of my normal stuff, and that's helpful. And it also makes my eyes a little tired. But I know experts say that it's better not to have some screen time before. And even taking technology and charging it outside of your bedroom, which could work for some people. I've heard people say that makes a big difference. But for me, I use my earbuds that aren't listening to podcasts that have white noise in them to help me go to sleep. So that uses my phone. That uses an app on my phone. So that wouldn't work for me to charge it somewhere else because it would be too far away. But any prep work that you can do that can help you will be helpful. And that could be unplugging from technology, not having a TV show on maybe within an hour or so before going to sleep, or not watching things that might be more stimulating or scary or things like that, that might throw that relaxation off. Also, exercising at night. I used to exercise at night. I don't know why I thought it was better. I think because my kids were little and I thought that was the only time I could do it. I'd get them in bed and then I'd exercise at night. Eventually, I switched to mornings just because I read that Oprah's trainer's book, saying that you burn more calories all day long if you exercise first thing in the morning. So I switched. But exercising at night can be helpful if that's the only time you can do it. But if you do it really close to bedtime, it might be stimulating to you where you might have a harder time falling asleep. I teach yoga classes at night. I teach a 6 o'clock class and a 7 o'clock class. And I've tried to be careful not to have as many back bends in the evening classes, because even a back bend where, I mean, we think of the traditional back bend like you did when you were a child, but anything that is really opening in the shoulders, the chest, and your arms are back more, that can be stimulating for your body too. But it also helps relax the shoulders. So I do still do that a little bit. But see, all these little rules that there are. I don't know if you do this too. I find little reasons why they're not as helpful. But I have learned things in yoga that help the body relax that apply to sleep too. And that is having the temperature the way that you like it. So you don't want it to be too warm. You don't want it to be too cold. So you have a way of either air conditioning the room if it's hot, or having a fan on, or if it's cold, having enough blankets, whatever it is, heavy blankets. I know the weighted blanket became very popular. I've always enjoyed a weighted blanket. My dad was in the Army and we had army blankets. And so I think we were heavy. We were heavy. I jumped ahead. That's another ADHD thing, if you do it, is saying words as fast as your brain is thinking them. So you're thinking faster than the words can come out. So heavy was supposed to be about 7 words later. But yeah, army blankets are made of wool and they're heavy. So I really like heavy blankets. My husband does not. So our bed looks like half blankets to the sky in the winter and him having a light blanket. And then the summertime, he has a sheet and I have 1 or 2 blankets and maybe socks. I'm usually a little more cold before the night begins. But having it set so that your body's not distracted by temperature, having it dark, even in a yoga class at the end, when a teacher just dims the lights a little bit. In the wintertime, when the days are shorter, I don't turn on the lights. In fact, I never turn on the lights in my room, actually. During the day, I turn them off too, because bright lights up at the ceiling, who can relax looking at that? That's what I think anyway. But I bring in some lower lights for the evening. And in the summer, you just have the daylight out the window. But even when we had lamps with a whole bunch of, different, those standing lamps that can have like 5 little arms, I would start with maybe all 5 of them on and then turn off a few of them and turn off a few of them as the class was winding down, and usually have some battery operated candles that are just on at the very end, so that it's almost like you're going to sleep, so that you can super relax at the end. And it's like that when we're going to sleep in the daytime. It might be a little harder because it's daylight. There are eye masks, the ones that wrap around your head. My friend gave me one of those. They're really wonderful. Or blackout curtains so that you don't see the daylight come in if you want to sleep a little longer. And even all the lights from our electronics. Are you sensitive to that? I'm very sensitive to that. If I go to a hotel and they have a digital clock, I go find a towel and I throw it over the top. I do the same with the microwave light, all those things. I even I unplug our toaster every night, and it's in the kitchen. And I'm not even in the kitchen. But if I wake up during the night to get a glass of water or something, or wake up in the morning and it's not bright yet, I do not like seeing the blue light of that toaster. So it does affect our bodies. So don't be afraid, not that you're afraid, but it can be helpful to cover those up, even on our TV. And we still have a DVD player. I take black tape and put it over the little lights that show up at night. I'm sure my husband thinks I'm obsessed with this stuff. It doesn't bother him in the least. But even if I stay at my daughter's house, I'm going around finding clothes in my suitcase that I can cover up, a charger that she has in there or something that is just making it too bright. But it makes a difference. And our bodies Our minds can sense that. What else? What else? What else? What is relaxing for you? Do you like having a certain pillow? Do you need more pillows? If you need 3, 4, however many pillows, come up with a system that works best for you. And when you're traveling, if you can bring some of that with you, it may make all the difference in the world of being able to sleep. Also, supplements, sleep supplements. There's different ones that you can do your own research on that. I'm not the expert on that, but I have found some like ashwagandha. There's a blend that I like that has not melatonin in it. It's not that I'm against taking melatonin. I take it sometimes, but it's not something I take regularly because I've read that it's not good to take it regularly. But there are some sleep supplements that have different herbs in them that can be helpful. I don't find any of them to be the best ever. I feel like I have to do other things as well, like the breathing, like the letting go in my mind, like putting things in my ears. If you're okay with earplugs, sometimes that can help if you don't like the sound of ambient noise, or if you do like the sound of white noise or ocean waves, the different things like that. Find one that works for you. You can get them on your phone and put them in earbuds. I don't have any affiliation with them or anything, but Bose makes earbuds. What are they called? Bose sleep buds. They're not cheap. I'm looking them up while I'm talking to you. They're actually on their second release of them. I bought them when they first came out because my husband snores, so I couldn't fall asleep because he snores, but he doesn't like white noise. And so this is a way for me to get white noise, and I don't hear his snoring as much. I can a little bit, but it doesn't prevent me from falling asleep, and then he doesn't hear the white noise. And then it's nice because I can hear my alarm in them without it waking him up, which is also a bonus. But yeah, they're called Bose Sleep Buds. The first edition had some problems, and then I spilled water on them, and so I replaced them with the second edition, and I like them a lot better. But I'm sure there are other things that you've used that might be helpful. But a lot of it has to do with the pattern during the day, and we've talked about that a lot, or I've talked to you about it a lot. But having a regular routine is really helpful for our bodies. If we have a rhythm to the day, a time that we go to bed, a time that we wake up, a time that we exercise, a time that we do things that requires a lot of our brains. Man, I'm saying this like I'm a neurotypical person. I know we're not all consistent all the time. So I apologize for acting like it's possible to do things in routine all the time. But working toward that, or not being afraid to switch gears or just start it up again. If you found a, a rhythm to your day that's worked before, go for it again. And notice if there are days that you go to sleep easier because you did a certain thing. Like if you like to take a hot bath or a hot shower at the end of the day, and you find, oh, now I'm just so ready to, especially if it's wintertime, it's colder outside, to put on some snuggly pajamas and get in bed. Then you might fall asleep easier because you've calmed your body down. Even a little bit of yoga. I have a lie down and let go that's at, on my website. That's a free yoga video. I think it's 20 minutes long or something. I could be wrong. I have two on there. One's 20, one's 30. I think the 30-minute is the yoga for scattered minds. But even just lying down with your feet up higher than your heart, whether you're laying down next to your bed and your calves and your feet are up on the bed, or you have a little table in your room, we have a coffee table. I guess now people have, more entertainment centers or something, but ours is a coffee table, but it's not too high, something that you can put your feet up. My favorite thing to do, and in yoga, they call it something super fancy. It's called legs up the wall. You just go and lay down. It's kind of tricky getting in and out of actually, but you go as close as you can to the wall on your back with your bottom toward the wall. I like to have myself as close to the wall as I can so that all of my legs are touching, well, not all, but as much as possible on the wall, and then my feet are up high in the air. And that wall is like a support. Like if you were laying down on the floor and you put your feet up in the air with just nothing there, your body's doing some work to keep the legs there. But if I went up and held your legs there, behind the calves or something, or at the ankles, then you wouldn't have to even work to keep the legs up, even though you don't think you're working at it. It does take some kind of effort. And when you have the support of the wall, you just get to relax with it, and you get your feet up higher than the heart. You get a little bit of a variation of circulation that way. And it is very, very soothing. I've had many times, usually when my husband's out of town, because it seems more awkward to do it at night when he's at home. But I've had times that I couldn't fall asleep at night, and I just get out of bed and turn around and put my head kind of in the middle of the bed and my legs up the wall on my bed. The only tricky part about that is if you like a lot of blankets like I do, then only the blankets are only on my chest. It's not on my feet. So then I'm trying to put it up, the blankets up on my feet. But if you did it so you're laying on the floor and your legs aren't up the wall, they're just on the bed. The calves are on the bed, the feet are on the bed, or you've got your legs in a long position. You can either have the knees bent or in a long position. You could put the blanket over your legs and your body and maybe fall asleep there that way. And it's weird because a lot of us aren't back sleepers. That's not a common way to sleep. We might be side sleepers or stomach sleepers. But when your legs are in the air for some reason, it makes it more comfortable, especially if your back is on a flat surface, like on a hard floor. Even though we like cushiony spaces for sleeping, for lying on your back, you have that support of the floor, and it's really relaxing for your shoulders. They get in more of a calm position. And I went into yoga mode that for those few minutes talking about that. But that can be helpful. And even if you just do it for a while, you fall asleep that way for a half hour or something, and then you climb in bed afterwards, or you turn around and you get into bed that way. The only thing that you should be cautious about if you have had a head injury, sometimes after a head injury or black eye or something, I had a black eye once. My son accidentally flung something at me. And I had always heard that an inversion with your feet up in the air was not advisable if you had a head injury because it's too much blood flow to the head, or if you've had a head surgery or something like that. And when I had that black eye, it was true. I tried putting my feet up higher and it was like, that doesn't feel good in my head. So don't do it if it doesn't feel right for whatever reason, because that's what we're after for falling asleep, right? Is the comfort, having the dark room, the good temperature, the body relaxed, and just having a normal bedtime, normal wake up routine. If you can, I know some of you are moms, or like me, I'm a grandma now, but when the grandchildren come to spend the night, I might not go to sleep at the same time, or I might wake up during the night. It might not always be possible. But anything that we can do that's healthy for us, healthy eating, exercise, that's one of the benefits of exercise, is making it easier to go to sleep at the end of the day. And exercising early in the day is more helpful for that. But if you can only exercise at night, still exercise at night, maybe not just so close to when you're going to bed. Another thing that can be helpful is if you're going to bed, let's say you don't want to put earplugs in, you can't listen to something else that's going to make you forget what's going on in your mind, but you can't stop that spiraling of thoughts in your mind. And as a yoga teacher, I'll tell you, I have a lot of resources at my fingertips for meditations or things to do to help you relax. But at the end of the day, when there's a lot of worries in your mind, those yoga tricks that work in a yoga class don't always work when you're really exhausted and you're in bed. Sometimes writing down the things that are bothering you can be helpful. Or if you don't want to forget something and you start thinking about it and you start planning things. I do a lot of planning when I get in bed, and my mind thinks, oh, think about this right now, think about that. And some people keep a journal by their bed. I don't do that. right now, but I've done that before where I'll write things down that I don't want to forget, but that might be helpful for you. But also just trying to flip whatever you're thinking about that might be a problem or a worry and turn it into kind of a glad game. Have you seen Pollyanna? I have a reason for being glad. What is a positive thing that you can think about that is related to that worry? And it's not like you're trying to deny that it's a worry. You're just trying to get your brain to stop spiraling. And I'm going to give you an example. And I apologize if I've shared it on here before because honestly, I don't remember always what I've told on here and what I haven't. But even so, it's not a bad thing to hear again. But many years ago, when my oldest daughter got married, we planned out her wedding, her reception. It was the first child that I had that got married. And one of the pieces of advice, or I guess it wasn't a piece of advice, it was something that one of my other daughters told me, is that she had been a bridesmaid. I'm trying to be accurate here. It probably wasn't one of my other daughters. It was probably the same daughter that got married. She had been a bridesmaid before, and she'd been a bridesmaid for friends of hers who were the oldest, the first one in their family to get married, and for friends who were the youngest in her family. And she said there was a big difference in the level of stress that went into the wedding, like with the mom or whoever was helping to plan it, or even the bride, because they'd done it before in their family. They knew how it could turn out. They weren't as stressed about it because they'd done it before. They lived through it, I guess. It can be a stressful thing. And here many years later, I don't even relate to why would that be so stressful. But I remember it was pretty stressful. It was fun. It was wonderful. And we aren't high budget people. It wasn't like we had a huge high standard of how it needed to be. But still, you want to have it nice. You want to let your daughter plan it out and have it be nice for her. So she had a Pinterest board. This is when I first heard of Pinterest, and she'd put up ideas. I saw the color that she wanted, coral and this lemon yellow, and she'd even send me, this is the exact coral. And she decided instead of bridesmaid dresses that she would have each of her friends just know the color and they could choose any dress they wanted, which was really amazing. I thought it was great because they were just friends who came together. It didn't have to cost them a lot of money. It could be something they already had, or it could be something that they would be willing to wear again because they thought it was so cute. And it was fun to see what they chose. And they were different styles and stuff. And so I did the same, although I think I was supposed to wear kind of a pink with a coral sash or something like a rose or something. And then, anyway, so I really strived to get that right color of pink. And same with any decorations for the reception. And I remember on the wedding day singing somebody who had shoes that weren't quite the right coral color. And I'm thinking, didn't you get her, didn't you get the memo? Like, didn't you see your Pinterest board? Like almost like I was thinking, why isn't this turning out? My daughter didn't care at all, but little things like that I think I put too much pressure on myself for. And I talked about perfectionism last episode. Maybe that plays into it. But little things like that kind of pinged away at my calmness. And I started out calm. Actually, the wedding went really, really well. I kept thinking, overall, this is turning out so beautiful. It's so lovely. Everything just seemed to go great. And then we get to the reception, and my daughter called, and she had gone to get changed her clothes. She went to put her dress back on, and her dress was very, very simple. It was actually a white bridesmaid dress that we had bought a big, wide lace sash for. We actually bought the pieces and made it, and it was really pretty. It was like a high waist kind of thing because it was a wide waist. This is probably 10 plus years ago. But anyway, that's what made that dress look more like a bride's dress, was that waistband. And she had lost her waistband, and didn't know where it was and looked around in the car. And I said, I'll call the wedding venue. I'll call there. Well, they had closed. And then I thought, oh no. And they weren't going to be open for a couple days. And so here I am at the reception place, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, everything, is falling apart. And I wasn't, acting out on the outside, but on the inside, it was hard. And it just wasn't going as planned. And I had been given advice, just know that something won't go as planned. And people would share horror stories of the bride losing her wedding dress on the wedding day, or no one showing up for the reception and finding out that the post office had lost all of the announcements and none of them went out. Those kind of stories that were pretty big time disasters, fiascos or something. But even for this, I just thought, wait, what? She's going to show up at the reception, and some of the people at the reception weren't at the wedding and wouldn't get to see how beautiful her dress was and everything. But it didn't stress her out. She just thought, if that's what it's going to be like, that's fine. And I finally did get a call through. They did find that it was there, and we were able to get it, I think, the next day or a few days later. But she didn't have it for that reception. She later had a reception where her husband lived and got to wear it there. But that was the first thing that set me off into not thinking things were going perfectly. And then we had cheesecake instead of cake, because my daughter and I both don't like cake. And we had specialty cheesecakes that one of my friends said, I'll make, look up some recipes, show me what you want. She made these amazing cheesecakes. So they were great. And then I just ordered plain cheesecakes from Costco. And I used to be a floral designer in high school and college. And so I decorated them with flowers and was going to take the white ones and put them on tiers like they were wedding cakes and decorate them with flowers. And then we'd serve just the plain one, cheesecake with tons of fruit. We had tons of fresh fruit and stuff. Or you could have the specialty cheesecakes. Well, part of the planning, and sorry if you weren't planning to listen to a wedding planning episode, but you might just be sleeping, and that's okay too. I'll try to keep it down. But part of the planning, and I thought this was so wise, I don't know if I thought of it, my daughter did, or someone told us, was that you can order cheesecake from Costco without the scores in them. So instead of having the lines in it for it already sliced, you can order them without those lines in them. And so I had ordered, I think we were just going to have 3 tiers of the cheesecake to look like a wedding cake. And so I'd ordered three without the scoring and the other ones with, so that we had plenty of cheesecake. Well, one of my friends who was helping, a lot of friends were helping set out the displays, and we didn't have caterers. We just had a lot of helpers that were wonderful who bought the fruit. That I thought I was planning ahead. I asked friends, I'll pay for all the food. Would you pick up this kind of fruit? Would you pick up this kind of fruit? So they'd all showed up with it. We all took the time, putting the plates together and everything, and it looked gorgeous. It looked gorgeous. If I do a blog about this, I will put pictures of the tables because it really did look gorgeous. But one of my friends went in to take one of the cheesecakes out to cut up to have ready. And she accidentally, well, she didn't know. She just grabbed one and didn't know that she wasn't supposed to cut one of the ones that wasn't scored. So that was another thing that in my mind was like, oh, disaster. We're going to have a cheesecake with flowers on it. That's not just simply white on the top. And I thought, oh, no, no, no. So a few things like that, little things like that. And the reception started. My daughter got there. Everything was gorgeous. My friend let us use her backyard. It was beautiful. She even had a cement area that we had a dancing area and stuff. I was going to say we had a DJ. We didn't have a DJ. I think my son played the music, but that's what people say when they have a wedding is we had a DJ. So that almost came out of my mouth, but we had this reception and it was really, really fun. And at the end, my daughter and her husband left for their honeymoon to Carmel and then up the coast to San Francisco, to Half Moon Bay. They had this amazing honeymoon and we had this lovely memory. But I think because the stress, those little times of stress got soaked into my body somehow, they got into my body. And when I went to bed that night, I wasn't even really thinking about it that much. I just thought, wow, wasn't that lovely? That was a nice day. But if you're someone who wakes up in the middle of the night or you're having a hard time going to sleep for whatever reason, I didn't have a hard time falling asleep that night, but I woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, which is one of my things I do almost every night. And when I got back in bed, I could not fall asleep. And when I could not fall asleep, I found that I was in disaster mode in my mind. I was taking anything that didn't go right and I was taking it up about 10 levels to thinking that it was the worst thing ever. And then her dress, and then the cheesecake, and I'm thinking of all these things. And I thought I knew it was dumb, but I couldn't stop it. I was just spiraling emotionally, and I was in bed sobbing. I don't do this very often. I was in bed sobbing, and my husband's over there sleeping, snoring. And then I take it from there to my daughter, and my oldest daughter's a lot like me. We're really close, had always been really close. And I was thinking, and my daughter, now she's married and we're not close anymore. And she didn't even appreciate what I did. And she just looks at him now. She doesn't look at me. They're very irrational thoughts because that wasn't true. It wasn't what I thought when I was awake. But when I was that tired, all the little thoughts became grander. And and I was just going crazy. I was just crying and crying and crying and thinking I'm never going to be able to fall asleep. It was 2 a.m. And so what do? I think I got to stop this. I got to stop this. And I couldn't talk myself out of it on my own. And I don't think I was teaching yoga back then. Maybe it was about a year before I did my yoga training. I taught yoga volunteer, but I hadn't been trained in any meditation or breathing techniques. And so all I could think of was to pray. And I prayed and said, please, please help me go to sleep. This is ridiculous. I'm looking at myself from the outside thinking, this is ridiculous. And this is the last tip that I want to share with you, because what came into my mind as I was praying wasn't correction, like calm down, you're being ridiculous. That's what I was telling myself. It was think of the things that did turn out. So it wasn't, completely playing the glad game. It wasn't just saying, oh, try to see the silver lining, which that can be helpful too. But sometimes when you're just trying to flip the negative, it's hard not to see the negative anymore. But when I had a new assignment in a way, or a new goal of thinking what did go well, there were tons of things that went well. So I laid there and I thought, oh, yeah, when they were leaving, we wanted to do sparklers, wave sparklers. And they do that sometimes after receptions, and everybody's out there waving sparklers. And then the bride and groom run through the little tunnel of sparklers while everyone cheers. Well, we couldn't do that where we lived in California because fireworks were illegal. So we heard about blowing bubbles, and we just bought bubbles, and everyone, just like little children, and the wands, and we blew bubbles or waved the wands of bubbles, and they ran through. And that was really, really fun. It turned out better than I thought. And I thought, yeah, think of all the things that turned out even better than you thought. And I thought of so many, like the fruit. Oh my goodness, the fruit was so good. The dancing was so fun. Some old friends came that I didn't know would come. Relatives came. It was so nice to see them. I started thinking of all the good things, and I was back asleep before I could even think about it. I didn't even get very far with the good things. I was back asleep. And it kind of reminds me of when you're with a child and the child is sad, they fell and skinned their knee and maybe somebody pushed them. Who knows? They're just, and crying. It's not just that they're hurt, but then all the other problems come up that they have, and they're just kind of spiraling, and you just kind of cuddle them and say, it's going to be okay. It's okay. It's okay. And I think sometimes if you're showing yourself it's actually okay, you have positive thoughts to have too, and you replace those spiraling ones with positive ones. And however you can do that, whether it's gratitude, whether it's what went well today, what am I grateful for? I'm still alive. I'm still here breathing, I've got a nice bed, any of those things can be helpful. And I find that more effective than trying to challenge my own mind with tasks. Meditations will do that, where count from 100 backwards, or start with the letter A and think of every animal that you can that starts with that letter. I know that helps some people fall asleep. For me, I think it just keeps giving me more ideas. I just keep running with it. It doesn't relax my mind. It kind of challenges my mind. And it's different than an entertaining challenging. To me, it's kind of like if someone else is giving you the massage, you get the benefits of it better than you trying to massage your own foot or something. And so if I can listen to somebody else talk, that's better than trying to do my own talking in my mind, unless I'm doing some talking that, like I said, the negative spiraling thing, having some of that replaced. It gets sent away when you don't have room for it anymore because you're bringing up positive things. To me anyway, it's a lot more relaxing than just doing a numbers game. And it could be for some people, maybe the other's better. It could be for you. I think of when you're in the hospital. Have you ever had surgery when you're in a hospital and they give you what's it called? The anesthesia. And they'll say something like, start saying the alphabet or count to backwards from 10. And you think, oh, I can, and they'll tell you, they'll kind of joke about it. I guess I've had too many babies or surgeries, but I haven't been put out for my babies. So I guess it's just surgeries that I'm remembering. But each time I think, oh, I'm not going to fall asleep. And it's just, I'm gone. So maybe that does work for some people that you're counting backwards by 100. But for me, it's like, singing 99 bottles of beer on the wall. It's like a really long game. And then I get to the bottom and I'm still not asleep. So anyway, I guess that's it. For today. Do what you can to improve your sleep. Don't give up if it's not working out for you. Try something that's worked before, try something new. They're all worth trying. And my goodness, I have almost come up to an hour. Partway through this podcast, I thought, I'm not going to be able to make a long enough one for them. I was hoping this one could be an hour long so that if you wanted to try to fall asleep, even for a half hour, and it took you a half hour to fall asleep, you had an hour-long podcast to do that with. And for those of you who aren't fans of the longer episodes, that's okay. You can do this one in small bites. That's okay. I've learned by teaching yoga that, and it's really helpful for any of you who are people pleasers, I've learned that you can't please everybody and you shouldn't try to please everyone. That's one of the nice things about getting older, is understanding things like that and not trying to make everyone happy. Do the impossible, right? That I think that is it for today. I probably won't get to a full hour episode, and that's okay too. I'm going to live with that. I will explain, though, why this has taken me longer to make today, besides starting later. But I decided it would be fun to take a video of part of the recording of this podcast today, because I have an email list for women with ADHD, and I send tips and things like that. And I thought, oh, maybe it'd be fun to show a portion of the podcast, just kind of a behind the scenes if you want to see it, and maybe get myself used to that idea of talking while being recorded, because I don't really like talking while being recorded. It distracts me. Unless I'm teaching yoga, then it's fine because I'm far enough away from the camera. I think it distances myself or something. I don't know. But anyway, so I did it, and I wanted to have the screen so that they could see GarageBand, that I have my recording software, and then myself in it. And it just recorded GarageBand and not me. And I thought, well, I wanted to have both because I was showing some things with my hands, and that's not going to work. So I played with it off and on, and then the audio stopped working, which I didn't realize till later. I I bumped the cable when I turned my laptop. Anyway, I'm just getting tired now, I think. But anyway, 1 hour later, I finally decided just make the video. Don't try to do it with both the screen and you, because I think doing the audio on both wasn't working or something. And I figured out that I had just pulled out the cable and I made that segment for them. But it just took me forever at that point to go back and figure out what I was doing and where I was. So, yay for finishing. And later this week, there will be another episode. I'm going to record it tomorrow because we have another hurricane coming here in Florida, Hurricane Milton. And I'm sure we'll be fine. We're farther north from where it's going to hit, but it's going to hit at a greater degree than it has in a while. So we still need to be prepared, and we might have power outages. And before I go, I want to tell you I did get that ADHD test up, or quiz. It's more of a quiz. I did get it up. I keep changing it, mostly because I wanted to meet the goal of having it available on October 1st last week. But it was far more complex than I ever imagined. And it's not quite, it's doing what it's supposed to do, but it's not doing what I want it to do yet. Like, it's not fulfilling its purpose yet. So if you want to play with it and give me feedback, you can. It's on the top of my website at the top bar, reneeallen.com, with a dash between Renee and Allen. And if you want to wait, that is fine too. Also, if you want to join my email community where we can write back and forth, I'll send you tips each week, maybe a video here or there. And eventually I might turn this into a video podcast. But I know that some people like the video podcasts. I never watch them. I always listen. At least I think, unless they were only available on YouTube. During the Johnny Depp trial, there was one that I really liked, and she decided to make it just a YouTube channel. So I had to go to YouTube out of desperation. But I stopped that after the Johnny Depp trial was over. Yeah, I do like legal things. I guess I said that about the Bravo docket and the Johnny Depp trial. I'm usually late to the scene on hearing about stuff, but I find it all fascinating. I guess it's just all the Law and Order that I've watched throughout my life. I like that kind of stuff. But thank you so much for being here. I said I wasn't going to play music, so I guess I need to honor that, don't I? I don't think I have any clip from the music that is calming, and all of my yoga music is copyrighted that I listen to. That's another thing. If you want really calm music, I have the best playlists on my Spotify, and I don't know if you can find it if you just have your Spotify. You probably could. Let me do a little test here. But you should be able to search for a person. So Renee Allen Yoga is what it is, just all 3 words together. And then it shows the profile, and then you go to my profile, and I have a lot of public playlists. They're pretty much all yoga. The only problem is that they don't put them in the same folders that I have them in. And I have them put into categories of how lively they are, how mellow they are. And I also made a Google Doc for the people who do yoga with me that has them categorized where they can just click on the link, knowing if it's instrumental or mellow or lively or Sanskrit or upbeat or oldies. You know, as a person with ADHD, I do like to categorize and spend time doing that instead of things that are probably more important. But if you're interested in some really mellow music, that's another idea for falling asleep. It's not as helpful for me because it's yoga class music, so for some reason it doesn't help me. But I've actually used my yoga music to help girls, like at a youth camp that I went to before. They had a hard time settling down and they kept getting in trouble by the people in charge. They'd come in and tell them to be quiet. So I just play my instrumental music and they would just fall asleep. And then they started asking for it afterwards. So it is calming. My kids like it too. It just reminds me of teaching yoga, so I don't use it. But thanks so much. That is the end for tonight. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.